Hello, it's Pete and Grata here from the Purple House in northwest Tassie. Today we'd just like to talk about getting our brain working properly. We often have people with, coming to us with a bit of memory loss, cognitive decline, and it's...
Or children who struggle at school.
Yeah,
so
ADHD problems, or they're behavioural problems, but
and people with brain fog.
And often it boils down to dietary, and
we found this really interesting article. So here's your brain, and Pete and I we're going to attach that to the video today, undiluted, so you can read it. It was written by a psychiatrist in America, and she says everyone needs meat fats for their brain to function properly. So this article comes from a psychiatrist. We won't tamper with it. We'll just stick it to the video so that it's completely legal for us to tell you about it.
There's a fatty acid called, it's DHA, which stands for a complicated word, but the brain needs that to function properly, and
80%.
it's only sources in meats. There's no vegetable source for that fatty acid, for that fat source.
So this is quite shocking and controversial, because today we're living in a where everyone is jumping onto the vegetarian or vegan bandwagon, right? And Peter and I have been conscious of this happening for a while now. Many years ago, like 40 years ago, Peter and I were vegetarians ourselves as well. Then we struck trouble in our own family with one of our grandchildren who was born with severe autoimmune problems, extremely severe. Like it basically caused his body to be inflamed to the point where he was always nearly dying. And when he was 5, he started to go blind. And Pete and I had done a lot of research. We worked with him every day. And at that point, we discovered that Elijah had to go on a carnivore diet. And meats and meat fats were the only foods that didn't trigger inflammation or anaphylactic shock in his body. So Elijah, he started, of course, he loved his carbs like all kids did. And so we had to switch him over onto a meat diet, and then within 2 months, or might have been less, wasn't it, Pete?
Yeah, it was about 2 months. His eyes had cleared
so
completely of inflammation.
That's right, because they said he was going to go blind, and on top of all his other problems, that was like so shocking to us. And then within 6 months, all the scar tissue disappeared from his eyeballs. And of course, your eyeballs are just a reflection of whatever else is going on in your body. So this is about 10 years ago nearly that Peter and I figured out that the carnivore diet, which is pure meat and meat fats, worked really well for the sickest people. But now science, so there's actually like polar opposites, right? Because you hear everyone say how good vegan is for your body, or vegetables, and Pete and I are telling you that from our experience, everyone does well with, the meat fats in particular are absolutely vital for your body.
And it's in particular that DHA is necessary for brain development. The first 27 months of a child's development in utero and being breastfed, they're getting that essential DHA from their mother.
They're basically on a carnivore diet.
They are. They're making 75% of their energy if they are fully breastfed on fats, but 55% of that energy is made from saturated fat. But the thing about the DHA, it's only found in animal products, and it's found in humans as well. Like the mum will be feeding her baby in utero, and then being totally breastfed, they'll be getting adequate DHA. And then the only other place we get it once we start on solids is from meat sources. And
some fish.
Vegetarians have a 31% less amount of DHA, and vegans, according to this article, have 61% less amounts of DHA. So it really affects our brain
function.
processes and thinking processes, our ability
for higher intelligence.
Yeah, higher intelligence, thinking, working things out.
Making the right choices.
Which man is known for above other species.
Yeah.
But we need the DHA for that.
So on top of that, Pete and I have been studying this really good book, which I would highly recommend. It's called The Vegetarian Myth. And the author, her name is Leah, I don't know how you say it, Kate or something, Leah maybe. She started her life as a vegan, or at least she became a vegan when she was 18, and she was a vegan for 30 years. And then she had so many incredibly bad problems in the body.
Health problems.
She had to start eating meat, much to her disgust. And then her body actually improved, so she got a new lease of life. So this lady, she actually writes all, argues even how eating plant food is absolutely unsustainable for our planet, and that humans don't consider how much and how many animals die to produce a plate full of a vegan meal. So she even argues that a plate full, let's say, you have a beautiful plate of good, clean vegetable matter. That's how we led to believe. She believes that 10 animals have died, or 10, species of animals have died for you to get your plate of vegan meal, compared to, say, you eat a piece of steak and that's one animal. So, because this was always something that really hurt me from a compassionate human point of view, that to eat meat, you have to kill an animal. But I didn't realize how many lives animals have been killed, say, to get a bowl of fruit, or a bowl of grapes, or a salad, or whatever.
Or a loaf of bread.
And that's when I realized it's not true science that all these arguments are based on. It's like very superficial science.
80% of the calories that humans consume from food is gained from annual crops. Monoculture. And then they spray, they poison, they
use pesticides.
Then they take the crop, which is feed for lots of different animals. And yeah, it's since the introduction of agriculture 10,000 years ago, that's when the decline of our soil, which is a depletable source of
energy, basically.
Well, it's depletable. That's when it started 10,000 years ago, and we became addicted. Our opioid centres became addicted to the seeds of grass
and grains.
Or grains,
and rice and corn.
And Grada and I walk past the bakery even today after not having eaten bread for ages, for years, and our noses go, doesn't that smell nice? And we're tempted to go in and buy a fresh loaf of bread. And
it makes your mouth water.
It's our opioid centres still dictating that.
It's also our opioid centres, I'm sure, that support the superficial science that says grain crops or vegetable crops are sustainable, because they're not. Whereas animal farming, if it's done in the right way, of course, is sustainable. So once you switch over and start to introduce more animal fats in your diet, you don't eat
it anywhere near as much.
You eat very little. Pete and I actually eat very little.
We get 10 times the amount of energy from a molecule of fat than we do from a molecule of sugar.
And then actually your brain starts to regenerate. So I mean, we never have brain fog. I can't remember when I last had brain fog.
We just recently heard of a chap who declined into dementia, and he hardly knew his son anymore, and his son cared for him, cooked for him, and then his son went on a meat diet, carnivore diet, and one day,
and so
a few months later,
I think it was a year later, so the father had dementia already.
Yeah, his father was in his chair and he said, I think I'll go out to the shed and do some woodwork. And he hadn't been out there for
a whole year.
For years. And he went out and started his woodwork again.
And then he started having conversations, and he started to relate better to people. So because his son was on a carnivore diet, the father by default was only eating meat and meat fats, and I think it took a year before a change happened, but then he gradually got better to the point where he was functioning normal again. So,
but beware of feedlot meats, because feedlots, the animals in feedlots are fed grains, and they have a high ALA, which is
omega-6.
Omega-6.
Which we all have too much of.
In them, and they have that in the meats, and they cause a lot of damage in our health. So if you can source grass-fed or organic meats, they're really the only ones that are worth buying and eating for our health.
So Pete and I, we just thought we'd share this information with you because we want you to make the right decisions, right? So choosing vegetarian or vegan meal isn't helping our planet, and it's also not helping our bodies. From what we've seen, this is our personal opinion. You don't have to go along with it. We're just offering you a different opinion. That's very controversial, by the way, at this point in time. And so I encourage you to read books like this from people who've been there, like this lady. She was evangelical about being a vegan, And so, of course, we don't condone animal cruelty in any way, shape or form, but we are concerned about the sustainability of the planet, and growing grain crops and plant crops is going to quickly erode what's left of our soils. And so the author of that book, she recommends that the food isn't imported in the community, that it's actually grown within the community. So for instance, if you're going to eat an animal, that you look after that animal and that you live in sync with nature. And she actually shows us where our place is in the food cycle. So we also, of course, have a place in that cycle. Like, we're not above animals or plants.
We die and feed the soil.
That's right.
To make more life.
She's also done a lot of research into plants, and she believes that plants don't like to be killed either, to be eaten. That's why they release a lot of toxins in our bodies. And aside from a lot of vegetables being toxic for us, our body doesn't have, the enzyme cellulase, that's it.
It doesn't have the enzyme. Our pancreas doesn't produce the enzyme to break down vegetables.
So the only vegetables that we recommend are fermented vegetables, of course, because they're already pre-digested.
And they're full of enzymes from the bacteria that are in the fermented food.
So like sauerkraut or kimchi, or all the lovely guts. Fermented vegetables are really, really good. They're grown by the vegetables come from sustainable farms, and then of course it's going to sustain you and keep you healthy. Also, fermented food, they purify your body from heavy metals and other toxins, and they really, really support your body. So,
and sometimes if we've been on a Western style diet, we store a lot of excess sugar as stored fat, and that years and years ago, back in the caveman days, was meant to sustain us in wintertime when food disappeared. And one of the first places we store it is actually in our liver, so it affects our liver, we need a good functioning liver to digest animal fats and good fats with. So if you have trouble with your digestion, and particularly digestion of fats, please get in touch with us, because we can give you some good advice and answers.
Also join our email list, and we can give you a lot more information that's pertinent to you, all right? So,
or come and see us.
Come and see us, of course,
if you've got
Pete and I have got so much experience. We've seen everything pretty much in the last 25 years, and before then as well, when Peter worked in the medical world. So we're just giving you this information as an eye-opener to to make you question everything. Always question everything, including question us, question popular, the popular movements that are around, because you know, the real question is, we think we're at the top of the food pyramid, but actually it's corn and potatoes and grains that are at the top of the food pyramid, because they make, we're addicted, our opioid receptors or whatever in our brain are addicted to these products. So we're continually growing them, so we're ensuring that these grains stay in existence. Right? You could say we need them. They don't need us, probably, right? This is what also the questions that you have to think, like, who is really dictating your life? Like, what is really creating this brain chemistry that leads to feelings, decisions, and thinking, a certain thinking style? And then, but the bottom line for me is, because I care deeply about nature, of course, is that Peter and I, we bought into the lie that plant diets are sustainable for the planet. Well, they're not. This is how we're eroding our soil, and we're killing plant life, we're killing the birds. So Peter and I live on 9 acres of beautiful land, hidden. We've let it rest for 20 years already. We grew like a beautiful forest there, and we let the grass grow and things to increase the bird life and insect life and all that.
That's another point that we've noticed. The bird life is
dwindling every year. Every year there's fewer birds. Whereas I mean, they don't even come to our little bit of paradise, because
it's the agricultural practices that have caused that, with the sprays and insecticides and whatever, and then the birds. So
I think the debate really needs to be, how can we be intelligent about our health, but our lifestyle, where do we fit in the food cycle, how can we live a beautiful life without animal cruelty, where everyone respects each other, and what creates optimum health. So we definitely have to start scratching below the surface. So Pete and I are here to help you, so please join our mailing list. We have some exciting developments going on in the background, and you can go on our website and join the Wellness Club as well. And I will put the title of this book underneath the video, as well as the article that was written by a psychiatrist. And then you can start your own journey, because information is power, of course, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, knowledge is power, and if you don't have this knowledge, then you're lacking power, then you feel disempowered and helpless, and it's easier for you to get sick and make the wrong choices. Thanks for tuning in. Let us know what you think about this, what your thoughts are. I'm really, really interested to know what you think, what your experiences are, and then we'll look forward to seeing you next week. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.